101.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 23 minutes, right? Oh my gosh, we have a short interview right now, but this is such a great book. Oh my gosh. If you were ever in a museum and you were looking at a Michelangelo and it was called a masterpiece, you would say, wow, that guy did a masterpiece. Well, maybe in the course of our lives, all of us have a masterpiece. And if you're an investigator, if you're in law enforcement, your masterpiece might be a secret unless somebody like our next guest happens to be a really good investigative journalist. And wait till you hear this one piece, this masterwork that we're going to tell you about. It's in a book called The Last Stone. Mark Bowden is on the phone. He's a journalist, and a historian, a researcher. It goes on and on, so many different credentials and different publications he's written for. But I want you to know about the book. It's called The Last Stone. It is a true crime story about two little girls. What was it?
Yes.
Two little girls, right?
Yes.
It was kind of in the 70s, and it wasn't until the 2000s when there was finally a break in the case. I'll tell you that much, and then we'll go to we'll let Mark tell the rest. Good morning, Mark. How you doing?
Hi, Larry. Good.
My goodness. Okay, so you actually worked on this case as a journalist when it first broke. Where did this happen?
It happened in Wheaton, Maryland, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I was working for a newspaper in Baltimore.
And two little girls, right? 10 and 12?
Sheila and Kate Lyon, yeah, 10 and 12.
So they went missing, and nobody knew anything.
Yeah, no one knew what happened to them. And when I was there covering it the first couple weeks, there were hundreds of tips and leads, none of which led anywhere. And ultimately, the story just kind of died because there was no information. No one ever knew what had happened to them.
Were you working for the newspaper?
Oh, yeah. I went on to have a career in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Inquirer and began writing books and magazine pieces in the mid-1980s, and this is my 13th book. So when I learned it had a break in this case all these years later, it was a chance for me to sort of find answers to that original mystery.
I know it's a book, and we I don't want to give any spoilers, but can you tell us what the break was?
The break was actually an accident. They discovered a statement that had been made by an 18-year-old man named Lloyd Welsh, who had come to the police in 1975 and told them a story about having seen someone lead the girls from the mall. And he said this man walked with a limp. And the character that the police were most interested in walked with a limp. So they began searching for Lloyd Welsh all these years later to find out more of what he knew, and discovered that he was in prison for child molestation. So when they sat down to talk to Lloyd, they began to feel like more and more, this is the person who we should be interested in.
Oh, so he dropped a clue early on, but it took that long. It took that long to... What did they do? They went back over the notes? Who was it, and why was it that the investigators wouldn't let go of this one?
Well, it was the most notorious and tragic case probably in the history of the Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department. And in fact, one of the girls' brothers eventually joined that police department. And the father, John Lyon, who was a radio personality in Washington, when he retired, he went to work as a victims counselor for the Montgomery County court system. So it had become kind of a family tragedy for this department. And of course, they never forgot it.
Oh my gosh, it's such a great story. So what did he confess when they went? He was in prison when they went up to him, when they met up with him?
He was, and just as he had lied back in 1975, he told them another set of lies when they first encountered him. And in fact, the story is really how, when you're dealing with someone who consistently lies, how you somehow extract the truth from all that. And to me, it's a nearly impossible task, and I think is ultimately the most interesting thing about the story.
Wow. So did they use double, like what do you call, like reverse logic or that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, one of the detectives, Dave Davis, told me that when people lie, they lie about the big things, but they flesh out the lies with the truth. And so even though the narratives that Lloyd would invent were always wrong, some details from the stories that he told kept emerging again and again, and they ultimately were able to piece together things that they could then go out and investigate and corroborate that proved to them that he had done it. And he did ultimately plead guilty.
And it must have been a huge relief for Detective Hamrock when this finding of this part of the testimony came to light.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And in fact, but interestingly, it was for the wrong reasons. He was focused at that time on another suspect altogether. And when he came across Lloyd Welsh's statement saying that the man who took the girls had walked with a limp, this confirmed to Chris the suspect that he was focusing on. So ultimately, it turned out that man was not involved at all. Lloyd really was the person of interest.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing story! And for you, as somebody who you were looking into it early on, did the police ever come to you to see if you may have uncovered something?
No. I mean, honestly, I was such a rookie. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was writing daily stories, but basically just talking to the detectives, talking to the family, try to keep track of, breaking events from day to day. But I was certainly in no position to investigate the thing myself.
And didn't they interview his family?
Oh, yeah, of course. The family was, I actually have recordings of those old interviews, which are heartbreaking to listen to. But, yeah, they did everything they could in those early days, and they ultimately came up empty. It was just this remarkable group of detectives here 40 years later who managed to solve it.
And there wasn't any physical evidence then after they figured out he really did it?
No, they've never found the body. They did ultimately locate what is thought to be the crime scene. And believe it or not, even 40 years later, there were traces of blood from where these girls were killed. And even though the blood was so decayed they couldn't get DNA, given the location, which was in the basement of the house where Lloyd had been living at that time, it was one confirmation that this terrible thing had happened there.
The book is called The Last Stone, and Mark Bowden is the author, and he was kind enough to send us a copy. So if you would like the copy that was sent to us, call me right now at 622-9622. I'll pick a caller at random and just leave it here for you at the station. The rest of us have to go buy it. Number 7 right now, not bad, on the Amazon chart. Do you have a website in addition to Amazon that we can get the book from?
No, either Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's also at all bookstores around the country.
All right, let me give this one away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
It's John. How are you doing, Larry?
Hey, John.
Sounds really good, the book.
Oh, my God. You're going to love it. You're going to like this one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mark, it's an amazing story. You've got some other amazing books, by the way. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. That was a good interview.
Well, I appreciate it. I thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. We will be right back.
Have you been waiting for a BOGO on roses? Well, your wait is over because at the moment, Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens is overstocked on those very popular drift roses. And while supplies last, they're buy one, get one free. Yes, these are number 2 size drift roses, red, coral, and pink, priced at just $19.99. You buy one, you get one free. Double red and double pink knockout roses, well, they're just $9.99. Bob has a giant selection of flowering vines, too many to name here, but they're all buy one, get one at half price. And, of course, azaleas, dwarf ever-blooming azaleas, still Ocala's favorite, just $3.99. Be sure to check the ad at bobwinescamelliagardens.net. Then hurry on over to Bob's huge store on Southeast 38th Street in Ocala. They're open daily till 4:30, Saturdays till 3 in the same blooming place since 1952.
Favo presents Symphony Under the Stars May 12th at the Ocala Golf Club, East Silver Springs Boulevard. Gates open at 4 p.m. Concerts
Hey, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 10 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. We hear it all the time that somebody's done with college and they're ready to enter the workforce and they got this amazing amount of debt. It just seems so unfair, Robin. They pay so much when they have nothing, right? And then next thing you know, they have to figure out a way. There are people in government who want to do something about that, and there are people in the world of finance who have some ideas on how you can do it without having to depend on the government, and I think I like that second choice better. So to tell us about this, Michael C. Taylor is on the phone. He's the author of the book called Financial Rules for New College Graduates, Invest Before Paying Off Debt, and Other Tips Your Professors Didn't Teach You. Michael Taylor is a financial analyst and a contributor to the San Antonio Express News and the Houston Chronicle. Michael C. Taylor, it's an honor to have you on our show. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Larry. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Where are you?
I'm in San Antonio, Texas.
So yeah, this is in the news almost every week. It seems like there's at least one elected official who wants to make college free, who wants to forgive college debt. I mean, it seems like that would create havoc. Not to bring a political aspect to this conversation, but your way seems the more sound. It seems like if we could just learn how to be smart with our money, it would not only feed a fish, it would give us, what's this expression? Give us a fish. It would feed us teach us to fish,
teach
right?
Teach us to fish.
Teach the man to fish. That's right.
Right.
So it's definitely a crisis. And a generation or two ago, it seemed like college was kind of affordable. If you had a pretty good job, your kid could go. Now, 2/3 of folks graduate with debt. It's $40,000 and up on average, and it's almost impossible that you can graduate without some debt. So everybody's worried about it. But I'm with you. I think the colleges, high school, junior high, but especially colleges, don't really arm our graduates with, here's the basic tools for how you would go about doing the right things in the first couple of years after graduating. So that's what I'm trying to address with my book.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, do you agree with the other part of what I said, that if you could learn how to do this to take care of your debt, then you could learn how to invest the rest of your life and use money smart, in a smart way.
That's right. We don't need magical thinking, and I'm with you. I don't think it's even realistic or reasonable to think that somebody else is going to take care of your debt. You're going to graduate. And if you're a parent worried about, your University of Florida graduate coming out with a lot of debt, I don't think you need to forgive the debt or hope somebody in Washington waves a magic wand, but you do need to arm your kids with knowledge. And in my mind, if you're wondering what do you get your kid who's got a little bit of debt, who's graduating from the University of Florida, get him a book. It's a lot cheaper, and if you can get them simple rules and principles to apply in the first few years after college, that's a pretty important gift, I think.
So okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, and those rules are very, very important, because I know growing up I wasn't that good with my money, but then after a few decades I really learned how to do it and do it right without sacrificing much.
Few people are good at it. I mean, anecdotally, I think 95% of us don't have parents who told us the right thing. And then, by the time I'm 47, and I feel like my peers are just starting to figure it out. Because they're like, oh, if only I'd known when I was 27 or 23. How was I supposed to do this? So it can be explained simply and hopefully in an interesting way. That's the attempt of my book. It shouldn't be, but generally, like you said, it takes us a couple decades to kind of figure it out. And I'm trying to short circuit that process. So we can figure it out earlier.
So speak to the college graduate who's just turning up the volume and they want to know more. What kind of things would they be investing in?
Well, it's a long conversation, but I think they should be thinking about tax advantage, and that's going to be retirement account stuff. Even if you're in your 20s, it sneaks up on you faster than you think. To go another way, most people are worried about debt and about budgeting, and there's this classic advice about budgeting and emergency funds. I just don't think that is as reasonable as it sounds to a 40-something. What I think college graduates should know, the first thing you should know in your first month after college is wherever you live, whatever job you get, you're not being paid well enough. So you're going to have to kind of have a worse house and probably a worse car than you think you deserve.
Right.
And it's rice and beans. And it only lasts for a couple of years. Hopefully you can get a bonus, you can get a raise. But that first job, here's the rule. Whatever city you're in, the cost of living is not meant for 23-year-olds. It's meant for 40 and 50 and 6-year-olds, which means you practically can't afford to live there. And you kind of have to know that up front. And so live cheap in the first couple of years to not put yourself into further debt is kind of my first piece of advice.
And I think even though there are college students out there that are able to get a lot of scholarships and things like that you don't have to pay back, that if they even went out to get a part-time job, might be even more helpful to them.
Oh, every bit helps for sure. And yeah, if you can work along the way and keep yourself from accumulating, if you only have, $10,000 of the debt versus $40,000 of the debt, it's a huge advantage, right? Once you're above $40,000, it's going to be crippling for the next decade, probably, unfortunately, versus, $10,000 is livable, I think, especially student loan debt is low interest debt, which is different from credit card debt. And it is compatible with building up wealth over time. If you have student loan debt, that's different from credit card debt, which is sort of incompatible with building up wealth over time.
So, but while that's true, are they both equally as important for your credit score?
They both affect your credit score, I wouldn't have people focus on their credit score. I would focus on what is the cost of this debt. And credit card debt, which is as easy as catching a common cold to accumulate, will keep you poor for decades. Student loan debt, while it is something you need to address, you can, I believe, simultaneously be responsible with your student loan debt, but also begin to build towards buying a house, towards retirement savings, towards investing.
Do you think that sometimes when the students go and apply for these financial loans that they do have it in the back of their mind, they say, oh, I'm going to get all the money I can get, but I'm not really going to pay it back?
I worry that this book that I wrote, Financial Rules for New College Graduates, is a result of teaching a college course in personal finance. And these are bright kids, but they have never figured out what is their interest rate, nor how to calculate their payments. So I think there's some basic stuff like when you are taking out debt, just as you're saying, do the calculation, do the math, multiply interest rate times the amount of debt, and divide by 12. That's what you owe every month. So the realism of calculating that math, I think, is a step that people are skipping. But absolutely no, you've got to figure out, is this a reasonable plan to pay back your student loan debt?
Well, you're talking to a good market right now. We have the university in our listening area, as well as a couple of other colleges and some satellite campuses of some of the colleges down in the Orlando area. So how? Let's see, what do we do to get the book? I found it on Amazon. Do you have a different website you'd like to recommend?
I think Amazon is great. Of course, ask for it at your local bookstore because we want to support local businesses. But Barnes & Noble and Target and Amazon all have it on their websites. So that's probably the easiest for folks listening. But yeah, of course, go down to your local bookstore and say, I want this book.
Does the advice apply to me? I don't have any college debt right now, but at the same time, I might need a little bit of advice on investing or saving, that kind of thing. Could I use the same information?
Absolutely. So one of my jokes is good financial practices haven't changed since about, the last 350 years. And the rules are fairly universal. Benjamin Franklin wrote a really good book, and I recommend people read it, from the 1760s. And at every age, the same principles apply, just in a different way. My peers who are, like I said, I'm 47, are starting to figure it out, but they're also like, I hope I'm doing this right. And I feel like my book is also addressing them in the sense of, here's the right thing, and hopefully you are. We figured it out over decades, but absolutely, yeah. The title says college graduates, but the principles apply at every age.
So did you write this for the young self that you used to be?
Yeah.
If you could get one of those time machines, would you... Is this for you?
100%. I went and worked on Wall Street. I worked for Goldman Sachs, and I was a bond salesman. I sold mortgage bonds. And in a sense, post-crisis, I was like, you know what? I wish I could have known what I know now, and I wish coming out of college it didn't take decades to learn what I learned. So yes, I don't think people should go to work for Wall Street. I think they should take a simpler route, which is buy and read my book or other great classic books, and you could cut out the step of having to work on Wall Street to figure this stuff out. Yeah.
Thank you for being on the show with us today. We will make sure we put this podcast up on the YouTube, and Robert will put it on Facebook, and we can share this. And anybody listening who wants to share the information, obviously you can do that as well. Thank you so much, Michael, for being on the show with us today.
Larry, thank you. Congrats to all the graduates.
Thank you. Financial rules for new college graduates. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
News. I'm Lillian Wu. President Trump tweeting about the attack at a synagogue near San Diego, saying he spoke at length with the rabbi. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders.
We have to call out this type of anti